Okay, before we begin the shir, or to begin the shir, before getting into the actual Shulchan Aruch, I want to talk about something outside, something to think about as a real life case study, partly theoretical, partly real, in order to anchor our discussion in Shulchan Aruch. If you're watching the recording of the video of the shir, you should be able to see on the screen. I have here open Wikipedia page from Bernie Madoff. If you're just listening to a recording, we're not going to read too much. We're just going to read one or two sentences that are going to be relevant to our discussion. So, in case you don't know, Bernard Lawrence Madoff was an American financial criminal and financier who was the admitted mastermind of the largest known Ponzi scheme in history, worth an estimated $65 billion. So we're talking about a yid, although it doesn't really matter for the purposes of our discussion of who's a yid or lahav delagay. But in this case, we are talking about a yid who committed Gazela on a very large scale. It says Shulchan Aruch, the Alter brings it also. Takanas kadmeinim v'cherim shalei lohetzi shem ra l'ameisim. So we're not going to be mitzi shem ra, but we're just going to say facts. And that's a story everybody, I'm sure everybody knows who Bernie Madoff was. What I want to focus on is one detail here that says as follows. Madoff was a prominent philanthropist who served on boards of nonprofit institutions, many of which entrusted his firm with their endowments. So, a prominent philanthropist, somebody who gave a lot of tzedakah to many different charities and foundations. The details which are written here, which are not so again. So, obviously, those who took money from him, those who took tzedakah from him, didn't know at the time, and this is not a question of what they should have or could have done, which in any case is irrelevant. The shaila I want to focus on a purely halachic question: what is the status of this money? A person who is a gazlan, who their money comes from Gazela. And they walk into your Chabad house, and they walk into your shul, or they call up your charity, or whatever it is. I want to give you a donation. Should you take the money? Are you allowed to take the money? What's the status of the money? What do you have to do? What's the halacha? We already learned in a previous shir in Sif Yud that when a person has money, so some of it is Gazela, some of it is not Gazela. So if you don't know that the money they're giving to you is Gazela, then you could take it, or whatever it is they're giving to you is stolen. You could take it, and you could be Taila. You could assume that what they're giving you is coming from is legitimate. It's not coming from Gazela. Today, in today's share, we want to discuss the flip side of that halacha, so to speak, and then see how it applies in real life. Before we get into the Alter Shulchan Aruch, let's learn a little bit the sugya outside in the Gemara and the Rambam. No, not outside, inside. The Gemara says, again, also if you're watching, it's here on the screen. If not, we're not going to read too much inside. Just a little bit. It's a Mishnah in Bava Kama Daf Kufid Gimel Amud Aleph. The Mishnah says as follows: In Pertin, Lo miteves hameichsin v'lo mikishal gabayin. One is not allowed to be paid, to take change from the collection box of a meiches. A meiches literally means a tax collector, but as we're going to see inside in the Alter Shulchan Aruch, and all the place can make this distinction, that we're talking about meiches ha'emed me'ilav, not a legitimate tax collector, but not a tax collector who was sent by the king, who was a government official to collect taxes from citizens. That we're going to learn is Dina de Malchus Adina, and those that money collected by the king by taxes is completely legitimate, and they have no status of gzela. Talking about over here, somebody who who appoints himself as a tax collector, or even if he's appointed by the king, but he doesn't take what is legally required, he collects much more, collects whatever he wants. So goes without saying that this is not din de malchusa, this is not taxes, this is not just gzela pure and simple. Somebody who calls himself a tax collector who's collecting quote unquote taxes is completely not tax, just taking money away from people by force. It's a regular gzela. So in pertin lemitevas ameichsin, so a such a meichis who has a teva, who has a box with money, you're not allowed to break a 20 from this meichis' money. You're not allowed to take change from it. Or from the purse, from the wallet of Gabay, and also another type of tax collector. And you're not allowed to take tzedakah from them. But one is allowed to take something from the Meiches's house, or minashuk, meaning other money that they have invested in the market, that's not from their teva, that's not from their box of money that every penny in there is stolen. To take mitech beisei or mitech hashuk, that's permitted. We run one. That's the Mishnah. We'll read one line in the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Tana, aval noisin le dinner, v'noisin le esashar." We learned in the Tosefta. The Gemara says, but you can give him a dinner and he can give you change. What does it mean? Let's say you owe the meiches a dinner, legitimately a dinner, half a dinner. I'm sorry, but all you have is a dinner. So you can give the meiches a dinner and he can give you change. Rashi explains why is that permitted, even though in pertin leimet tevas ameichsin v'leimet kishagaban you're not allowed to take change from tevas ameichsin, and so over here is because it says kematzel miyad. It's like you're taking the money belongs to you. The money comes to legitimately. You legitimately only owe half a dinner, and he's going to give you and you're going to give him a dinner. He's going to give you half a dinner change. So you're matzel miyadim. You're saving it from him. Otherwise, it would go to other improprietous purposes. He would keep it for himself. So that's the Gemara. Now, the Rambam in Hilchos Gezeilah v'Aveda Parakei Halachatas says as follows: Bnei Adam shechaskasan gazlanin v'cheskas kol mamayna min hagezel. People who are cheskasan gazlanim, they have a chazaka that all they do with their time, all they do for a living is their gazlanim. They make money from gazela. V'cheskas kol mamayna min hagezel, and the chazaka is it's known, it's established that everything that they own, all their money comes from gazela. Because their livelihood, their job, their work is melechas gazlanim, k'goyd ha-moichsin, like ha-moichis, ve'alistim, and other robbers. Asur lehadas b'hem. It's forbidden to have any kind of derive any benefit from them. Shecheskas malachazu shehu gazel. It's a chazaka that everything that they have from their work is stolen. Ve'in mitzdarfim dinrim min hateva shelahem, and you're not allowed to take change of dinrim or exchange dinrim for smaller denominations, for smaller currencies from their teva. Shakel b'cheskas gzela, everything is presumed to be stolen. So bashkafa rishayna, so everything looks very simple. The Rambam is we have a Gemara in Bava Kama, and the Rambam brings down the Gemara in Hilchos Gezeilah v'Aveda and paskins halacha l'maisa like the halacha in the Mishnah. However, if we think about it a little bit more, we'll notice that there are two very glaring issues over here in the Rambam when we compare it to the Gemara. Number one, the Gemara says, "Ein mitzdarfim dinrim, ein pertin leimitevas ameichsin v'leimikes shagabayim." You're not allowed to take change. You're not allowed to exchange dinner for smaller currency. But you are allowed to take something from them, from their house, or from something else that's not from tevas ameichsin. What does the Rambam say? Asur lehanes mehen. It's forbidden to derive any benefit from them. It's not what it says in the Mishnah. The Mishnah doesn't say other. The Mishnah says it's permitted to derive benefit from them if it's as long as it's not from the teva, as long as it's not from the kids. But if it's from their house, if it's from something else, that's fine. Who asks this question? The Mishnah Lamelech asks the question, and the Torah and Cheshem Mishpat Simshin Samachtas doesn't ask the question. But based on this hasaga, based on this argument, he argues with the Rambam. He says the Rambam is right about listim. Listim is robbers. Okay, not allowed to have anah from robbers, but meichsen, the Mishnah says clearly that you're allowed to have anah from meichsen. Only you're not allowed to take. You're not allowed to be pirate miteva sameichs. You're not allowed to take change from the teva of the meichs, from this box. Okay. Second question is that the din that we learned in the Gemara, that if you taka owe the meichas a dinner, and he has to give you half a dinner change, you're allowed to do that. The Rambam omits this din entirely. Doesn't say it at all. How do I know? Because the Maggid Mishnah says this. The Maggid Mishnah asks the question. Says the Rambam doesn't bring down the din. The Rif also doesn't bring down the din, and I don't know why. Says the Maggid Mishnah, and the Beis Yosef brings it also in Cheshem Mishpat Simshin Samachtas. He brings the Maggid Mishnah without any further comments. As the Maggid Mishnah notes that the Rambam doesn't bring this down, and he doesn't know why. So, in order to answer these questions, there are generally three answers that the Achronim say. Number one, first answer is the Beis Yosef in Cheshem Mishpat and Siman Shin Samachtas. The Beis Yosef answers as follows: the Mishnah that says that you're allowed to take from the meichas's house, you're allowed to take from the meichas's personal things. You're not allowed to take something from the meichas's box. That's about money. That's only about cash. That's where there's a difference. Because money, we're only worried that it's gzela if it's from the teva, if it's from the box. If it's from home, we're not worried that it's gzela. But other things we're worried that it's gzela even if it's from home. But because meichsin, we're talking about somebody who shows up and demands money from people. Obviously, this was an intimidating person, and somebody who was so intimidating and with no conscience. We assume that everything that they have is stolen, and that their family and their servants, everything at home is not legitimate. So anything that you can't take, the example that B'Sisa brings is food. You can't take food from the meichas' house; it's stolen. The Mishnah says that's only talking about money. The second answer that the B'Sisa brings, second answer that the B'Sisa offers, is as follows. Similar to the first answer. Why is it permitted to take to be pirate, to exchange money from the meichas's house, but not from the meichas's teva, not from the meichas's box, where he keeps the money? Is because when you're exchanging money, it's not a real hana. You're giving him something, you're getting something in return. You're not getting something, you're exchanging one thing of equal value for another. So over there, from his house, fine. From the teva, when it's mamish Gezeilah, even that's usher, even though it's not a real hana. But other things where you're not giving something else in return, so that's a real hana. That's usher, even mitech beisa, even from his house. That's the second answer to the basis. The third answer is offered by the Smeh in Siman Shin Samachtas Sivkat and Zayin, and he is mechalik between a small hana and a large hana. We can argue, we can debate whether there's a difference between the Smeh's answer and the Beis Yosef's second answer, but basically, you can tell that they definitely overlap, that it's a similar idea. He says a small hana, exchanging money is a small hana. A small hana, there's a difference if you do it from the box, if you do it from the house. From the house is mutter, because you're giving something in return, so it's only a small hana. But from the box, even a small hana is usher. But a big hana, taking something that's you're not giving something in return, that's usher, even if it's mitoich beisay, even if it's from the Meiches's house. So these are we can debate if it's 2 answers, 3 answers, but these are the answers that are generally given. The problem is that all 3 of these answers are difficult. And they're difficult for the following reasons. Difficult for many reasons, but we'll focus on 1 or 2. Like we mentioned earlier, we already learned in Sif Yud that anything that you don't know for a fact that is Gzela, a Ganav, somebody who's known to be a Ganav, and they come and they offer you something, or you want to buy something from them, as long as you don't know for a fact that it's Gzela, you're allowed to take it and be Toila and assume that it's not stolen, that it's from something that he owns. Not everything he owns is stolen. Only most things he owns are stolen. So you assume that it's from the miut, from the minority. That's not stolen. The Lavush explains it's because it's an Isser Hanam Rabbonim, so you could be Taylor. Okay. So with that introduction in mind, let's think. If we're talking about a gazlan, like the Rambam says that Cheskas kol mameni gazel, every single thing that he owns is stolen. There's nothing to be Taylor on. So if that's the case, how can you be mechalik from his house, from his teva, from the body? What's the difference? Everything is stolen. Every single thing is stolen. And if you're talking about a gazlan who's not kol mameni gazlan, that not every single thing is, we already learned Sif Yud, that you could be Taylor. Maybe from the box stack you can't be Taylor because everything in the box is stolen. But from at home, why could you should be able to be Taylor? You should be able to be Mekel. So if that's the case, then why are we mechalik from his house, from a small hana, a big hana, whether it's food, whether it's money? You should be able to be Taylor. Furthermore, if we want to accept that we're talking about a gazlan that cheskas kol meaning gazel, there's nothing to be Taylor on. Every single thing that he owns is stolen, and that's taka the truth, as we'll see. That's what we're talking about over here, as you can see in the lashon of the Rambam. Bnei Adam shechaskasim gazlana v'cheskas kol meaning and gazel. So if that's the case, then again, if exchanging money, if being paired mitevas hamoichsin, taking money from his box is considered a hana, then why is it mutter if it's miteich beise? Even according to the Mishnah, I'm talking about bnei Adam shechaskasim gazlanim, everything they have is gezel. So why is it permitted to take? Why is it permitted to take something from their house? Are you going to answer like the Beis Yosef answers, like this man answers? That's not a real hana because you're giving something in return. So then if it's not a real hana, then why is it also from the box? It's not a hana. And the third question that we can ask, is we still haven't answered our second original question, why the Rambam doesn't bring down the din of the Gemara that if you owe the gazlan a half a dinner, the meiches a half a dinner, you can take a half a dinner. You're allowed to take the change. So because of all these questions, we have to have a different mahalach, a different approach in understanding the Rambam. And indeed, we do find a fourth way. The fourth way is the Shilta Geberim. The Shilta Geberim in Bava Kama, over there, explains the Rambam in a completely different way. Derech Agav, the Smeh himself, in the Drisha, the Smeh wrote a commentary on Tur, on all 4 parts of Shulchan Aruch, on all 4 parts of Tur. Called Drisha and Prisha. And on Chesed Mishpat, we also have a commentary on Shulchan Aruch from him called the Smeh. So the Smeh himself, we quoted the Smeh. The Smeh himself in the Tur writes in the Drisha like the Shilta Geberim, and in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Smeh, in Sifkatan Vav, in the one Sifkatan before the one we mentioned earlier, he's Mitzayin to what he says, and the Prisha says, look what I wrote in the Prisha, how to explain that. And then in the next Sifkatan Zayin, he gives a different answer. So it's a tzarichin. If some said the Smeh was chayzer, but the Smeh could have been chayzer from what he wrote in the Drisha to what he wrote in the Smeh, but to say that it was chayzer for what he wrote in Sifkatan Vav to what he wrote in Sifkatan Zayin is a little bit more difficult to say. In any case, the Shilta Geberim says as follows: the Rambam, this he doesn't say it in these words, but we're gonna paraphrase. The Rambam already for answered all of these questions in this lashon. Bnei Adam shechaskasan gazlanim v'cheskas kol mamayim min hagezel. Every single thing that he owns is min hagezel. There's nothing to be told. It has nothing to do with the halacha that we learned in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and Sif Yud, that somebody who has even if most of his possessions are stolen, but he has a little bit, so you could be told, is nothing to do with that. There's nothing to be told on. No, v'cheskasan gazlanim v'cheskas kol mamayim min hagezel. They have no other job. The Shilta Geberim adds the words that the Rambam doesn't say. They have no other job. So if that's the case, it's pashut. Whatever they have, it doesn't matter if it's from their house, it doesn't matter if it's from the shuk, it doesn't matter if it's from the teva, from the bank. It's gazela, and it's also to have enough from it. What about exchanging money? So, if it's exchanging money in a way that is a hana, let's say I have $100 bill, but I need to break it. I need 20s, I need 5s, I need 10s. So if it's a hana, so then it's also. If it's not a hana, if it's all the same, I don't care if I have 100, I give you 100, you're giving back 100 exactly the same. You're giving back 250, so I'm not gonna get a hana from it. So then it's mutter. So if that's the case, we already understand why the Rambam doesn't bring the din of the Gemara, that if you have a dinner, and you owe the meichas a half a dinner, and he gives it to you, and you give it to him, and he gives you back your change. There's no isser there. You're not getting any hana. So the Rambam doesn't bring it. He says asur lihanis mehem. So b'meila, if it's in a manner that there is no hana, there's no isser. Why do we have to say? Earlier we mentioned that Rashi says, why in that case is it permitted? Because it's kematzel miyadim. It's like you're saving it from him. The Rambam is arguing with Rashi. He's not arguing with Rashi. He says the Shilta Geberim. He says, I still need that reason because it could happen. Two things could be true at the same time. I owe the meichas a half a dinner, and I happen to have a dinner, and I need change. It also happens to be that I'm getting a hana because I punkt also needed a half a dinner to pay, to pay the parking meter or whatever. So if that, so therefore we need the reason of matzel miyadim to allow it even in such a case. But the Rambam is not getting into that detail. The Rambam is telling you the general rule that if it's a bnei adam shechaskasan gazlanim cheskas kol mamayim in a gezel, if it's in a manner that there is hana, then it's mutter. If it's in a manner that there's no hana, then it's aser. And therefore, that's why the Rambam says aser lihanis mehem. And Milo, we understand that if it's in a way that there is no hana, it's permitted. If there is hana, it's aser. Doesn't make a difference. If it's from the teva, it doesn't make a difference. If it's from the house, if there's hana, it's aser. Why doesn't the Mishnah? Why is the Mishnah mechalik? Because the Mishnah is not talking about So now, let's see how the Alter Rebbe summarizes this entire discussion in Sifyud Beis. Bnei Adam shechaskasam gazlanin v'chaskas kol mamayim gazel. People who are established robbers, and about whom we can assume that everything that they have is stolen goods, because their profession is a malachas gazlanim, and they don't have any other profession. Asr lihanis mehem klal. It's forbidden to have any hana from them at all. Bein bechinam, bein liknis mehem. Doesn't matter if it's to take something from them for free or to buy something from them. In any case, it's hana. Even to sell something from them to them is asr because they're going to give you money in return, and their money is gazel. Even to exchange a coin for another coin of the same. To exchange money, not for another coin, not for the exact same thing, but for another coin of the for change of the same value, but you're getting a hana from it. That is asr. Whose opinion is this? This is the opinion of the Shilta Geberim. even chiluf matbea, even if you're giving something in return, if it's in a way that you're getting hana from it, it's aser. Va'filo lekabel mihem tzedakah aser. Even to accept tzedakah from them is aser. That's the din of the Mishnah. And derech hagav, there's a different. Again, we're talking generally. We're talking about. We have to say that we're talking about Yiddish Gazlanim, because in any case, there's a separate the issue of accepting tzedakah from a guy or from a mummer in Yerideh and Simon Rish Dalet, which is not our discussion over here, but just mentioning that as a Maimar Musker. Which is just another thing we mentioned at the beginning of the year, a shiloh of taking money from a Gazlan, of taking tzedakah and a Chabad or another institution. So there's another shiloh of taking money from a guy. In any case, and we cannot be told lahakal like we can in Sifyut to say that he has a little bit of his own. So talking about a person who has no other job, there's nothing to be told on. You can't be told that he has money from another source, that he has another source of income. He doesn't have another source of income. Everything he has is gzela. There are those who allow chiluf matbea, exchanging money, because you're giving, because it's a small hana. And you don't know for sure that this money is gezel, even though it's cheskas and gezel. Even though it's a chazaka that everything in this box is cheskas gezel. I'm sorry. A meifis, everything in the box you know for sure is gezel. A meifis, to take something from his house, you don't know for sure that it's gezel. Everything they have is becheskas gezel, but it's theoretically possible that you got money in some legitimate way, and it's only a small hana. So in that case, it's permitted. And also to accept tzedakah is permitted. Because the gabbai who's collecting tzedakah on behalf of the poor people, he doesn't have enough from it. He's doing a mitzvah of collecting tzedakah. Maybe he feels good about it, but mitzvah leileh, and that's not considered a hana. And the aniyim who actually have hana from the money, they're not having hana from the gazlan, they're having hana from the gabbai. The gabbai tzedakah shekvar zacha b'ma'is halal aniyim b'yesh v'shin rishus. He was already zeicha in this, he was already zeich in this money. He already acquired this money on behalf of the aniyim, because the original owners were miyash. They give up and it transferred ownership from the gazlan to another person. Whose opinion is this? This is the opinion of the smeh, which Chair also fits with one of the answers of the Beis Yosef, but we're quoting over here the smeh. Who's the halacha like? So the Pashtas, I think we mentioned the one said before in the previous year, in the Pesach, brings two opinions, Stam and Yesh Imrim. He means to Paskin like the first opinion, and it says Stam. Over here we have Stam and Yesh Matirim. So could have debated who the Alter Rebbe is Paskining like, because especially it continues over here, Shakal Vataria. But in any case, later in a later Sif in the Kunsh Sachin, in addition to the fact that over here it's a little bit mashman that the Alter Rebbe wants to pass like the first opinion, later in Kunsh Sachin, Sifkat Nidalef, the Alter Rebbe says Beferish, argues with the Smeh, and he says that there's no mucker for this chiluk in the Gemara, and why would how could the Rambam say this? Something like that. In any case, continues the Alter Rebbe in Sifid Beis, but if you know for a fact that this money is stolen, everyone agrees that it's usher to take money from, it's usher to take change from money that you know for sure is stolen, and not to take tzedakah from money that you know for sure is stolen. Therefore, it's usher to exchange money from the box of the meiches, and where he places the money that he collects as meches lefisha min hastam, hu neitel yeser mi'akitzba shekotzav hamelech, because presumably he takes more than what the king set in place, and what the king determined. If a king appoints a meiches to collect a certain amount of taxes, and the meiches collects the taxes, we're going to learn later in Sif Tasav, that's legitimate. That's called din of the malchusa. But over here, the king told him a certain amount, and he is collecting whatever he wants. This is not din of the malchusa. This is gzela. Shekivan shemeisach al kitzas melech ein v'mechas mishum dina malchus din hayil v'nigba shaloi kedin v'akel gezel. So if a meiches was collecting unlawfully is has money in his box, in his pouch, and whatever it is in his safe where he's collecting that money, everything in that money is considered 100% gzela, and according to all opinions, Shilta Geberim and the Sma and anyone else, it's usher to even take change from that money, even though there isn't so much of a hana, because you're giving something in return. If he is obligated to give a chatzi dinner meches, a half a dinner in taxes or as a toll, and you only have a dinner, in that case, you're allowed to give it to him and take back the change of half a dinner, even though it's stolen and you know it's stolen, because you're rescuing it from him. Sifik Gimel continues in Svara to just explain this halacha. Therefore, we mentioned earlier from the Shilta Geberim, even in this case, where you have hana from this exchange, for example, if you need a chatzi dinner, you have a dinner, and you taka a half a dinner to the meiches, but it happens to be that you need a half a dinner for something else, and you're getting hana from the fact that he's giving you your change. That's mutter. Why? Because kematzel biyadav. Because that what we said earlier, for that we need the reason of kematzel biyadav to permit it even in such a case. Aval chiluf shein behana klal Yisrael, but in exchange that is bechlal no hana, mutter afshe ene kematzel biyadav. And that's permitted even in a case where we don't have the svara of matzal miyadim. For example, any other transaction that brings no hana to the yid, for example, selling at a very cheap price, you're not making a profit to a meiches or to a robber is mutter. Even though they're definitely paying with stolen money, because the bailim already the spirit of ever getting them back, and you're not having hana from them, that's permitted to do this transaction. But if it was before Yeyosh, if there was no Yeyosh, then it's forbidden. And the owners, the owner are able to extract the money from anyone who got it from the listim, from the robber, from the meiches, before they were miyash, even if there was no hana. To summarize, start off with a shaila. Bernie Madoff walks into your Chabad house, wants to give you tzedakah. So I don't know all the details of the case, but it depends. If you could be toila that lav dafka Bernie Madoff, anyone, if you could be toila that they're giving you money that's not necessarily from Gazela, then technically you're allowed to take it. But somebody that cheskas and gazladim, cheskas kol mameinim gazel, then according to the Shilta Geberim, it's usher to take it as tzedakah. The Alter Rebbe over here brings a yesh matirim that says it's mutter to be makabel tzedakah, but it brings a reason because it's a gabay tzedakah and he's not having hana. But if you are having hana from the tzedakah, then everyone would agree that it would be usher to take money that you know for sure is stolen as tzedakah when you don't have this svara of gabay tzedakah. In the main machlekes, the primary machlekes of the Shiltei Geberim and the Smet, it's mashma over here that the Alter Rebbe is paskening like the Shiltei Geberim because he brings his opinion first bestam, and then he continues in Sifyat Gimel also to explain more halachas according to the Shiltei Geberim shita. And later in the Kuntra Sachar in Sivkat Nidalef, the Alter Rebbe clearly says that the Smet shita has only makir b'Talmud. So it seems safe to say that the Alter Rebbe is paskening like Shiltei Geberim. We have some more time. We'll read one more sif. If the meiches took your donkey, and in return he gave him another donkey, or robbers that stole someone's garment and they gave him back another garment in return. You're allowed to take it and consider it yours. If it's known that the Bailam gave up the spirit of ever getting it back, because it's not considered like you're having hana from gezel. It's not hana. They're giving you something in exchange as a replacement for what they took from you. It's exactly they took a donkey, they gave you back another donkey. And you don't know for sure that it's gzula. You understand that a meichis is going around stealing donkeys, and he's because he's stolen from you, and he shows up the next day with another donkey. It's safe to say that it's chaskasa gzula, but you don't know that for a fact. You didn't see it being stolen with your eyes, and it's not a real hana. Similar to the din of Sifyat Beis, where these two svaras come together, it's not a hana because you're getting something in return for what you gave, and you don't know for sure, and you know that if it would be stolen, Yadoshin is Yosha Bailam, so in that case it's permitted to take it. If a person is a vasik, over here they translated as conscientious. Okay. Vasik, we know the Gemara in Brachas, vasikin, somebody who's a chassid. And he's a machmer alatzle, machzir lebalal rishenim, he returns it to its original owners, shaloi lehonis min gezel, to not to have any hana from gezel. The Alter Rebbe explains, even though they gave you only in exchange for what you gave. So it's not a real hana. It's not a real hana, like we discussed. You're getting something in return for what you gave. What you gave is already stolen. If they didn't, if you don't know that he was going to come back to you the next day with another donkey, with another ksus, with another garment in return for yours. So you are having a hana. Yours was already stolen. You already gave up. I don't know if you say it was a gather of years or not, but what happened? My dahava shows up the next day, and he gives you another one in return. So me'ikar adin, you could be mekel. You can have these two things that say it's not a real hana because you're getting something in return, but because there's a svara to say that yours is already stolen, my dahava, and it is a hana, so somebody who's a vasik machmar latzme should return it in such a case. However, shuras hadin is that you're not obligated to return it in this case. And we'll stop here for today. And Be'ezras Hashem, we'll have one more share before Yom Tif next week. Be'ezras Hashem.